Financial Planner. Follow us on YouTube.
GDP is revised much lower as economic indicators worsen. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as we can see, the economy, well, a lot of the economic indicators, they are deteriorating, and it looks like we're getting a lot of revisions coming in. And of course, they're blaming the hurricanes for most of this. And we can see that this has been going on for quite a while. The hurricanes aren't going to make the economy all of a sudden go down the tubes because it hit Texas or it hit Florida. The rest of the country was not hit. So this is kind of ridiculous at this point, but they're going to try to build this up and make it seem like this is the main problem of why the economy is not doing well. Now, the UMich, which is the University of Michigan's headline consumer confidence index, it slipped lower in September from 96.8 to 95.3. And what has happened is basically hope has tumbled right now. People are looking at the economy, looking at what's been going on, and they're starting to realize there are problems. Now, does this mean that everyone in the country believes this? No, there's a lot, I would say a big portion of the country that thinks, yes, the economy is going to be doing well, it's going to be doing better, and things are going to improve. But what we're really seeing is that things are starting to break down. Now, we mentioned yesterday about retail, how retail is not doing that well, and it's starting to break down even further. We see on the corporate media, they have to report that there's something wrong with media, and they're out there saying that retail sales, well, they unexpectedly, I like when they use that term, unexpectedly fell in August. Well, we know why they fell in August. It's not because of the hurricanes. It's because people are just not spending. People are losing their jobs. And basically, they reported that sales have dropped by 0.2%. Motor vehicle sales have tumbled by 1.6%. And we see at this point that we are in big trouble right now. We're heading into the holiday season, and every holiday season that we looked at, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And when you think about this, the unemployment numbers have come down, but sales have also declined at the same or a faster pace. So there are problems. Now, why is this a problem? Why is this happening? Well, there are a couple reports out there, and we can see that Americans right now, they are scraping by with almost no money in their savings account. Now, the St. Louis Federal Reserve said the personal savings rate in June of 2017 was a measly 3.8%, or $3.80 for every 100 these people earn, with the median household income in the U.S. at just north of around $50,000. That would amount to about $4,000 a year. Now, another study from Go Banking Rates found that 69% of Americans surveyed had less than $1,000 in savings, and about one-third had no money in reserve. Now, remember, the U.S. economy is based on 70% of consumption. The GDP is based on the people going out and spending on retail. So people are not spending because spending is down. People aren't saving. There is a major problem. Now, people have been ramping up and putting a lot of money on their credit cards because this is the only way they can survive. Now, the Federal Reserve, their data shows that the aggregate credit card debt had hit an all-time high of about $1.027 trillion. So when we put all this together, it shows that people cannot save, people cannot spend, and people have to put whatever they possibly can to survive on their credit card. Why is this? Well, there's a lot of people that don't have jobs, or people making a lot less money than they used to. And again, we can see this from everywhere we look. I mean, look at retail, look at the housing market, look at what is going on around the country, because people, they just can't find those high-paying jobs. Even though they're telling us the unemployment numbers are very, very low, that we're almost at full employment capacity, it makes no sense. Now, when we look at the housing market, we can see, and this is coming from Atom Data Solutions, they released some information about home flipping, and we saw this back in 2008, where there were a lot of people flipping homes. They go to those areas where these houses are appreciating very, very quickly. They purchase the house, and they go ahead and they flip them. So these people, once again, are out there and they're doing the same exact thing. Now, what's very interesting about this is that 1 in 4 home sales are flips in a certain number of cities or areas, and those correlate to those areas where Case-Shiller shows that houses are moving up in prices. I mean, if we look, we could see that Miami is one of them, Washington is one of them, New York is one of them, Los Angeles is one of them, Philadelphia is one of them. And they are basically going in because houses are appreciating. They got bubbles in these areas, and they are flipping the homes. Now, more than 35% of the homes flipped in the second quarter of 2017 were purchased by the flipper with financing, up from 33.2% in the previous quarter and up from 32.3% a year ago, to the highest level since the third quarter of 2008. This is nearly a 9-year high. We are back to where we were in 2008. We're running into the same exact problems. They created these bubbles. They created the illusion that the economy is doing well. These people are out flipping. And guess what happens when the economy turns down? All these people are in trouble because traffic will dry up. If they have 2 or 3, 4 flips that they're doing right now, guess what? They can't move them. They are stuck with them. Well, we see right now from Morgan Stanley, well, there's a problem in Manhattan residential real estate. It looks like it's headed for a crash. Now, we reported on this once before, and what we're seeing right now is that it is not doing well whatsoever. New York City's commercial real estate market, well, that is not doing well, and we can see that all these properties that have been purchased by Chinese corporations and other foreign entities, well, this is starting to dry up, especially from China, because now they're diverting all their funds and they're using it for the Belt and Road. And what we're seeing right now is there's an 84% drop in overseas property investment by Chinese corporations during this year. And another 18% will most likely happen in 2018. Now, this is a huge decline, and this is hitting the commercial real estate. This is hitting the residential real estate area. And what we're seeing right now is that the entire Manhattan area, San Francisco, and many other cities, they're starting to see a downturn in rents, a downturn in people purchasing these homes. We're seeing prices, they are coming down. We're seeing the vacancy rate, it has climbed from 2.27% from 2.14% a year earlier. And this is the first annual increase since February. And we're headed into a whole mess of trouble here. Another troubling sign in Manhattan is real estate developers. Rents in August declined in almost every Manhattan neighborhood. Condo sales dropped by 11% compared to last year at this time. And we can see the whole thing is just imploding on itself. And this is how it begins. Now remember, the New York Fed, the Atlanta Fed, they were out there, they were estimating the GDP numbers. They were saying they were going to be around 4%, 3.8%. They said it was going to be fantastic. And now they can use the excuse of the hurricanes to say, well, you know something, maybe these were too high. Let's bring them back down. And of course, we're getting other information from retail, from housing, from everywhere else that the economy is not doing well. So they readjusted their GDP numbers. They brought it down from almost 4%. We are now down to around 2.2%, more in line of where we've seen it in the past. And actually, this is probably going to go a little bit lower than this. And who knows, they might revise the whole thing. We know this is completely manipulated. So at this point, what they're really showing us makes no difference. If we go to shadow stats, we can see the real GDP numbers. Well, they're around the negative area right now. And I'm sure that this is going to go below 2%, just like it's been for the last many, many years. We've never really hit 3% or 4%. That's completely gone. Remember, they manipulated the GDP numbers. They went all the way back to 1929. They included research and development. They massaged the numbers. They added Obamacare. I mean, they did whatever they possibly can to bring these numbers up, but we could see right now that it's completely falling apart. And these 4% GDP numbers, we knew that this was completely fake, phony, and false, but they do have an excuse. They're going to use the hurricanes as the excuse, but what's really happening is the economy is still on that down downward trend, that downward slide, and it's not improving whatsoever. We see that no one really cares about the debt. Nobody really cares about how much debt there is in the system. And we, as a nation, we are going broke. I mean, total U.S. public debt, remember, it just hit $20.1 trillion. Now, after Congress suspended the debt limit last Friday, the Treasury went ahead and reported $300 billion of off-balance spending they run up over the last 6 months since hitting the debt ceiling in March. So, at $34,880 of new debt per second, the federal government is running up the debt at speeds that are over like the speed of light here. And they have gotten completely out of control. And guess what they're going to have to do? They're going to have to spend more and more and more. We see that industrial production, it took a dive. It's at 0.9%. And we see right now that they expected that this was going to be a gain, but it wasn't. It was a drop in industrial production. And here's the kicker. This number that is coming out, it's not based on the hurricane. It was already negative without the impact of the hurricanes. So this is another area which shows that the economy, industrial production, GDP, retail sales, housing, this has nothing to do with the bad weather. This has to do with the constant deterioration of the economy. The economy is not improving. It's getting worse. The debt is continually rising. Actually, the debt is increasing at a faster pace than it's ever has before. And we see right now, there's nothing the government, nothing Trump, nothing anyone can do about this because the system cannot be sustained. Think about your household. If you were making, say, $50,000 a year, let's just use that as a base, and you weren't getting any raises or anything like that, but everything was going up. Your auto insurance, your health insurance, your rent was going up. Or if you own a house, your taxes were going up. And all the other expenses, food and everything else was going up, and you were only making a certain amount of funds coming into the home. Guess what would happen? You would have to borrow some money to make up the difference. And as the cost of everything continually rises, you'd have to borrow some more. Then you have interest payments on that. You'd have to borrow some more to make up for the interest payments to pay for the things that are going up. And this cycle cannot be ended. It just continues. And you'll be taking on more debt. And eventually what happens? Everything gets out of whack. You can't do it anymore. You don't have enough money coming in. You can't survive. You can't borrow anymore. And this is what's happening to the U.S. government. The debt level is increasing. The tax revenues, instead of staying even, they are falling. So they're not bringing in the same amount of tax revenue because people really don't have jobs. And as the debt rises, and as the cost of all these programs go up, guess what happens? Everything falls apart. As people lose their jobs, GDP and everything else falls apart. This is why this can't be sustained. This is why they've been creating and printing money as fast as they possibly can. This is why the Fed is out there with stimulus. This is why the ECB is out there with stimulus, because they realize without all of this, the whole thing just comes crashing down. It's going to come crashing down no matter what. They're just prolonging it. Just like people who are in the boat of, taking on more debt, trying to make ends meet. Eventually what happens? They have to go bankrupt because they can't continue on with it. It's completely impossible. This is what's happening here. Does it happen in a snap of a finger? No. Think about your own household. You can maybe keep it going a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, we can't do this anymore. We can't afford this. We can't make the payments. We need to go bankrupt. This is what's going to happen. It's taken a very long time, but we're approaching that point in time where the whole thing is just going to completely fall apart and there'll be nothing they can do. The United States will default on everything. And this is why you need to be ready and prepared.